Chapter 446. Emoshur did not expect that the dragon vein, which originally looked like a dried-up spine, could actually grow flesh and blood. And on this flesh and blood, dozens of tentacles grew out. His tentacles kept reaching towards Emoshur's right hand. Soon it climbed onto Emoshur's right hand. Then it climbed onto Emoshur's body. Finally, it climbed onto Emoshur's back. In the next moment, the tentacles on the dragon vein were like sharp blades. They suddenly pierced into Emoshur's back. Then they separated to both sides. His Emoshur's back was torn apart. Ah! Emoshur screamed miserably. He did not expect that the fusion of the dragon vein would be so painful. He asked in his mind, "System, is this okay?" The system's voice replied, "Frowny face, since ancient times, the dragon vein has been fused in this way." Emoshur wanted to say something, but the tentacles on the dragon vein had already torn open the muscle tissue under his skin. However, it only tore open Emoshur's muscle tissue and did not hurt Emoshur's bones. Perhaps it was under the stimulation of this intense pain. Emoshur's body seemed to have begun to change involuntarily. In just a few seconds, he transformed into a giant dragon. However, even in the giant dragon form, the wound on his back was still there. At this moment, the dragon vein followed the wound and entered Emoshur's back. Then it climbed onto Emoshur's spine. It began to fuse with Emoshur's spine. The speed of the fusion was not fast. Instead, it was extremely slow. The fusion of the dragon vein was a very long process. Generally speaking, those particularly talented giant dragons were born with dragon veins in their bodies. Giant dragons without dragon veins would have to endure a long and intense pain if they wanted to fuse with dragon veins. And at this moment, Emoshur was enduring such pain. The tentacles on the dragon vein were like hundreds and thousands of steel needles that were more than a foot long, piercing directly into Emoshur's spine. Something was injected into Emoshur's spine. During the injection, Emoshur felt his mind go blank. The pain was so intense that he almost fainted. It was so painful that he kept flapping his wings. The ground beneath his claws had been scratched into 4 large pits by his dragon claws. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind: give up on the fusion. This kind of pain was completely inhuman. In this kind of pain, anyone would feel that it was better to die than to live in such pain. If such a thought had only flashed through his mind, it would have been fine. If he had such thoughts for a long time and relaxed his willpower, then the final result would be the failure of the fusion and a painful death. Fortunately, this thought only appeared in Emoshur's mind for a moment. He had started out on Earth as a small fry in a corpse farm. Along the way, he had experienced countless difficulties and dangers. Could it be that he died because he couldn't bear the pain? I can't accept this. Happy is still waiting for me to go back. If I die here now, just how sad would Happy be? Therefore, I must go back. Emoshur's heart was filled with a tenacious fighting spirit. He wanted to live. He had to live. Sometimes, between life and death, there was only this thought. If he felt that living was too painful and tiring, then it was very likely that he would give up because of this and never be able to live again. Fortunately, Emoshur persevered. Moreover, after enduring the first wave of pain, the following pain was easy to endure. Although the pain still made him grimace, it was not as intense as the first wave. Emoshur gritted his teeth and let out a painful dragon roar. Roar! Under this dragon roar, all the trees in the miniature world were shaking. All the houses seemed to have swayed a few times. The waterfall of the Dragon Valley seemed to have stopped for a moment. In this kind of pain, time passed second by second. Emoshur always experienced what it meant to live like a year. He was really counting the seconds. Just like this, the pain lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. During these 3 days and 3 nights, Emoshur seemed to have slowly lost consciousness many times. His brain was in a mess. Slowly, he seemed to be unable to feel or hear anything. However, even so, the thought of living in his mind did not decrease in the slightest. After 3 days and 3 nights, the wound on his back had completely healed. It was also at this moment that the pain on his body completely disappeared. His body seemed to have relaxed a lot at this moment. He hurriedly turned around and looked at his back. Sure enough, the scales had already covered it, and there was no wound. He focused on feeling his body. The dragon vein had already fused with his spine. Moreover, at this moment, the blood in his body was flowing smoothly, and the energy was circulating extremely smoothly. On the surface, there did not seem to be any changes, but in Mosher's senses, there was a tremendous change. In the past, although he was a giant dragon, his body also had giant dragon blood. But that blood was the blood of giant dragons that he had consumed. His body could not truly produce giant dragon blood. But now, after fusing with the dragon vein, his body could truly produce giant dragon blood. It was also at this moment that he truly became a giant dragon. And at this moment, Mosher discovered that his body length had also increased by a lot. It was only 130 meters. And now, his body length had already reached 150 meters. Seeing his body length, Mosher was stunned. Then, he hurriedly looked at the attributes in his mind. Frowny face. Name: Mosher. Level: Rank 5 Bloodthirsty Demon Dragon. Ability: Rank 5. Mosher's heart could not help but beat wildly. Previously, he was only a Rank 3 Bloodthirsty Demon Dragon. After fusing with the dragon vein, he actually directly advanced to Rank 5. He couldn't help but feel excited. With one fusion, he advanced 2 ranks in a row. This could be. Mosher asked in his mind again. System: Has my dragon vein mutated? The system replied. The dragon vein that has just been fused will not mutate. And only after reaching the level of an evolved giant dragon will there be a change. Mosher nodded. However, he could feel that after fusing with the dragon vein, his body's strength was not inferior to that of a grand desolate master. It was no exaggeration to say that the current him, in his dragon form, could challenge a level 3 grand desolate master. And after fusing with the dragon vein, even in his human form, he could challenge a level 1 grand desolate master. A level 5 desolate hunter could challenge a level 1 grand desolate master. In the eyes of others, this was simply a fool's dream. But in fact, Mosher could really do it. Moreover, this was not Mosher's full strength. With a thought, he summoned the sea dragon clone. At this moment, the sea dragon clone's body length had already reached more than 1,500 meters. Chapter 447. After fusing with the dragon vein, Mosher's level rose by 2 levels. But it was obvious that rising 2 levels in a row was only the most ordinary benefit that the dragon vein brought him. The benefits brought to him by the dragon vein would only be revealed in the future. At the same time, Mosher summoned the sea dragon clone with a thought. At this moment, the sea dragon clone was nearly 200 meters longer than before. It had reached 1,500 meters. The 1,500-meter-long creature meandered in the sky, giving people a great sense of oppression. Ordinary people would feel incomparable panic and despair just by looking at it. Mosher used the Devil Dragon's Eye to look at the Sea Dragon clone's level. Level 5 strong, mutated, desolate beast. The Sea Dragon clone had absorbed the Dragon Pearl, so its level should have risen long ago. However, it was limited by Mosher's level not being able to rise, so it hadn't risen. This time, Mosher had risen 2 levels in a row, so the restrictions were lifted. It had also risen 2 levels in a row. Level 5 strong, mutated, desolate beast. In terms of realm, it was equivalent to a level 5 grand desolate master. In fact, the Sea Dragon clone's combat power far exceeded that of a level 5 grand desolate master. Even if it encountered a level 6 grand desolate master, it wouldn't be at a disadvantage. This time, after fusing with the dragon vein, Mosher's overall strength had been greatly improved. Mosher put away the Sea Dragon clone, planning to leave the miniature world. But at this moment, he discovered that the miniature world was no longer the same as before. The surrounding houses had long collapsed. The bamboo forest behind the house had long disappeared. The bamboo seemed to have been blown far away by the shock wave. The grass on the ground had completely disappeared, revealing the wet soil. A little further away, the Dragon Valley had completely collapsed, and the river in the middle of the Dragon Valley had also disappeared. Mosher paused and quickly reacted. It must have been caused by the huge commotion when he was fusing with the dragon vein. However, at that time he was in extreme pain and didn't pay attention to this at all. He smiled bitterly and helplessly. It wasn't easy to get this miniature world, but it was destroyed just like that. It was a pity. However, the system reminded him, frowny face, you can reshape this world according to its previous appearance. Mosher asked doubtfully, reshape? How? The system replied, all you need is a single thought. Isn't this equivalent to a god? Mosher said. The system replied, the miniature world belongs to the host. Therefore, in the miniature world, the host is a god. When Mosher heard this, his mind moved slightly, and he whispered, restore. In the next moment, the broken bamboos that had flown far away automatically flew back. It was reconnected to the original fracture. Moreover, there were no gaps in the joint, as if it had never been broken. The pieces of grass that flew away flew back and covered the soil. On the ruins of the Dragon Valley in the distance, the massive boulders quickly flew up and returned to the mountain peak. Water also began to flow out of the river within the Dragon Valley. In just a few minutes, everything that had been destroyed was restored to its original state. Mosher looked at this magical scene and said in surprise, that works? Does that mean that I can change the rules as I please here? The system replied, the host is the god of the miniature world. You can do whatever you want. Mosher immediately moved his mind. In the next moment, the water from the Dragon Valley waterfall no longer flowed down. Instead, it flowed upstream. The water in the nearby lake condensed into a figure on the surface of the lake. On the surface of the lake, MJ danced. At the same time, 10 suns appeared in the sky under the control of his mind. 10 suns lined up in a row. When he watched TV before, there was a 9-star alignment. Now it was a 10-star alignment. However, these 10 suns did not feel hot. Instead, they were very cool. Then, the surface of MJ's body that was condensed by the water on the surface of the lake began to change constantly. In the end, the clothes on his body became ancient Chinese clothes. A large bow was also condensed in his hand. He drew the bow and shot at the 10 suns in the sky. Whoosh, the bow was drawn like a full moon, and the arrow was like a shooting star. After the arrow left the bowstring, it also rapidly changed. Soon, it reached a length of 1,000 meters. Then, it steadily hit the sun at the front. However, after it hit this sun, the sun did not explode. It did not fall down either. The arrow passed through the first sun and continued to fly toward the second sun. Then the third, the fourth. In the end, the 1,000-meter-long arrow pierced through all 10 suns in the sky. It looked as if a giant candied hawthorn had appeared in the sky. An eagle flew past. When it saw the giant Tonghulu, it was so scared that it turned around and fled. However, before it could fly 5 meters, it was shot by another arrow and fell from the sky. When it fell to the ground, it turned into a pot of steaming eagle mushroom stew. And all of this came from Mosher's mind. As long as he thought of something, it would appear here. If he wanted beauties, a bunch of beauties would immediately appear here. If he wanted money, a pile of money would immediately appear in front of him. Of course, in this miniature world, money was of no use to him. He just enjoyed the feeling of controlling everything. Everything in the world, any law, would move because of him. Unfortunately, such an abnormal ability could only be used in this miniature world. If he could use it in the entire outside world, wouldn't he be invincible long ago? After having enough fun, a thought appeared in Mosher's mind again. Return to your original state. In the next moment, the scenery in front of him quickly changed. In less than 3 minutes, everything returned to its original state. It had to be said that in this world, the feeling of destroying the world with a thought and creating the world with a thought was quite satisfying. Then, Mosher raised his head to look at the sky. Next, it was time to meet the Dragon Clan. Thinking of this, Mosher's figure disappeared from the miniature world with a thought. Oh, Dragon Valley, Dragon Clan. The Dragon Clan had mobilized almost a third of their clansmen to search for Mosher. This search lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. For 3 days and 3 nights, they had almost turned the Dragon Valley upside down. As for the 2 spirit readers, they had even thoroughly searched the area within a radius of 3,000 kilometers around the Dragon Valley. However, they still couldn't find any clues about Emoshur. In the Dragon Valley, Long Shuang's face was filled with regret. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have taken out the dragon vein even if he was beaten to death. Now, the dragon vein had only been in his hands for a few days and he had lost it before he could even warm it up. Not only did this cause him to lose the help of his cultivation, it also caused the elders in the dragon clan to doubt his ability. This time, even if the dragon vein could be found, his position in the clan would not be as stable as before. Chapter 448. Long Shuang of the Dragon Clan was both depressed and resentful. He had thought that after obtaining the dragon vein, his future would be smooth and he would be able to become the clan leader. In the end, in just a few days, the dragon vein had been lost and he had not caught anyone. This would have a great impact on his future. And all of this was caused by Emoshur. Thinking of this, he clenched his fists. If he caught that kid, he would definitely tear him into pieces. At the same time, the entire dragon clan was searching for Emoshur. They couldn't just watch as the dragon vein was snatched away by someone else. After all, their dragon clan only had this one dragon vein. That afternoon, Emoshur's figure suddenly appeared in Long Shuang's room without any warning. Long Shuang, who was feeling depressed, felt someone appear behind him. He immediately turned his head. The moment he saw Emoshur, the anger in his heart soared. "Kid, give me back my dragon vein." As he spoke, his entire right arm instantly turned into a genetic weapon. His genetic weapon was very special. It was not like the other cultivators' genetic weapons, which were weapons like swords, spears, and rods. His genetic weapon was a thick dragon claw. It was somewhat similar to Emoshur's dragon claw. He roared and slashed at Emoshur with his claw. Emoshur smiled indifferently and stretched out his right arm. Bang! He easily grabbed Long Shuang's dragon claw. Seeing this, Long Shuang was secretly shocked. Due to his anger just now, he had used 100% of his strength in this attack. However, this guy had easily blocked his attack with 100% of his strength. This guy didn't even use his genetic weapon. Most importantly, the aura emitted from this guy's body clearly indicated that he was only a level 5 Desolate Hunter. A level 5 Desolate Hunter could easily block the attack of a level 10 Desolate Hunter without using his genetic weapon. Are you King kidding me? However, this made him even angrier. "Kid, you're courting death." Long Shuang roared again. The genetic weapon on his right arm began to light up with a red and white light. He activated his energy weapon. Then, he raised his energy weapon and was about to attack Emoshur. However, Emoshur raised his right palm, and a fiery red glow appeared on the edge of his right palm. Then, he slashed at Long Shuang's energy weapon. Chi! A soft sound rang out. Long Shuang's energy weapon was instantly cut into two. Fell to the ground. At the same time, the section that fell to the ground was filled with energy, but it did not shoot out. Suddenly, it exploded with a loud bang. Crash! Long Shuang's house was torn apart by this explosion. As for Long Shuang, she was blasted several meters away. Her face was covered in blood. The excruciating pain of losing his right arm caused him to fall to the ground in agony, wailing in pain. Emoshur, on the other hand, had been prepared for this. A layer of energy barrier appeared around his body, blocking the damage from the explosion. His body was unharmed. At the same time, the dragons in the vicinity heard the explosion and rushed over. It was also at this moment that they discovered Emoshur, whom they had been searching for several days, but to no avail. "It's him! That guy! The guy who stole the dragon vein!" As soon as he shouted, hundreds of dragon tribe members immediately surrounded him. At the same time, the news quickly reached the ears of the Dragon Clan's patriarch and great elder. All the spirit reader masters of the Dragon Clan immediately used their spirit sense to lock onto Emoshur. Emoshur laughed at himself. "It seems that I'm quite the center of attention." At this moment, Long Shuang endured the pain of his broken arm and let out a beast-like roar. "Return my dragon vein." Emoshir glanced at the surrounding dragon clan disciples, then looked at Long Shuang. He shook his head. "I can't return it. I've already fused with it." When the dragon clan heard this, they were all stunned. All of them knew that the incomplete dragon vein could only assist in cultivation and could not be fused with it, unless this brat had obtained a complete dragon vein. Thinking of this, everyone's hearts immediately burned with passion. In the legends of the dragon clan, after fusing with a complete dragon vein, one would be able to transform into a true dragon. Almost every generation of the dragon clan wanted to find a complete dragon vein and transform into a dragon. But tens of thousands of years had passed, and not a single person had transformed into a dragon. They did not expect that there would be someone who had fused with a complete dragon vein. How could this not make their hearts burn with passion? At this moment, the patriarch and great elder had also rushed over. They had originally come to capture Emoshir, but when they heard Emoshir's words, the two of them looked at each other and stopped. Patriarch Lord Long's 2-foot-long black beard fluttered in the wind. On his body, a mighty long way spread out and attacked Emoshir. At the same time, he said, "You said that you have fused with a complete dragon vein. Do you have evidence?" After saying that, he carefully observed the changes on Emoshir's body. Emoshir naturally also felt the long way. He could not help but shake his head. Wasn't it just releasing long way? Who didn't know how to do it? In his body, a long way was also released. He was already a dragon, and now that he had fused with the dragon vein, how could these pseudo-dragons compare to Long Wei? The mighty Long Wei spread out. All the dragons within 100-meter radius, except for those grand desolate masters, unconsciously knelt down. As for those grand desolate masters, each and every one of them were extremely terrified. Under Emoshir's Long Wei, they only felt a sense of fear from the bottom of their hearts. This kind of fear had nothing to do with courage. No matter how brave a person was, under this Long Wei, they would feel fear from the depths of their hearts. Seeing this, Patriarch Lord Long looked at the great elder beside him. This great elder was far-sighted and had always been his strategist. However, this time he saw fear in the great elder's eyes. This made him puzzled. Could it be that this guy in front of him had really fused with the dragon vein? Thinking of this, Lord Long turned his head and said to Emoshir, "Since you have truly fused with the dragon vein, you must be able to transform into a dragon. If that's the case, our dragon clan will definitely respect you as our leader and obey your orders. Our dragon clan has believed in dragons for tens of thousands of years. If you can let our dragon clan see the true body of a dragon today, it will be our dragon clan's fortune." Hearing this, Emoshir directly plundered Lord Long's memory. From Lord Long's memory, he knew that Lord Long still suspected that he had the true body of a dragon. If he showed the true body of a dragon now, Lord Long would really lead the entire dragon clan to submit to him. After all, their dragon clan had believed in dragons for tens of thousands of years. Understanding this, Emoshir nodded. "Watch carefully." As he spoke, his figure quickly changed. In a short period of time, it turned into a huge dragon that was 150 meters long and covered in black scales. All the members of the dragon tribe who were present were terrified when they saw Emoshir's appearance. Then, they all prostrated on the ground. Chapter 449. Emoshir transformed into his bloodthirsty demon dragon form. His 150-meter-long body gave everyone a huge sense of pressure. His ferocious dragon head, which was as big as a house, struck fear into everyone's hearts. Its thick and solid dragon tail and sharp dragon claws all showed how powerful this giant dragon was. The grand desolate masters who hadn't knelt down before all knelt down when they saw Emoshir, including their patriarch and grand elder. Even the grand elder's forehead had a few drops of cold sweat rolling down to the ground. Emoshir was secretly happy to see these people kneeling on the ground. The dragon race was the most powerful force on the flaming Dawn continent. No one dared to disobey the dragon race. As long as he controlled the dragon race, many things would be easy in the future. Thinking of this, he uttered a dragon's roar. "Rise, all of you." Everyone in the dragon race breathed a sigh of relief. They all stood up, looking at the dragon in front of them. Their shock, excitement, surprise, and yearning overlapped. This made the expressions on their faces very complicated. However, at this moment, a voice that seemed to come from underground suddenly came. "He is a bloodthirsty demon dragon." The ancient dragon race has an ancient rule that any dragon who sees a bloodthirsty demon dragon should be killed. Those who violate this rule will be expelled from the dragon race and will never be a dragon again. Hearing this, Wuxia spread his dragon's consciousness underground. However, his dragon's consciousness could only reach about 5 kilometers underground. Couldn't go any deeper. Obviously, the owner of the voice was hiding 5 kilometers underground. When the surrounding dragons heard this voice, they all called out, "Old clan leader!" It's the old chief's voice. The old chief is still alive. He said this is a bloodthirsty demon dragon. What is a bloodthirsty demon dragon? I don't know. I've never heard of it before. The chief of the dragon race, Lord Long, was shocked when he heard this. Then he turned to look at Wuxia's wings. His heart couldn't help but tremble. He saw that the dragon's wings had several holes of various sizes. They looked like tattered bedsheets. It was only then he remembered that the chief had mentioned 100 years ago that the bloodthirsty demon dragon's greatest characteristic was that its wings were this kind of tattered pair of wings. 100 years ago, he had heard the old patriarch mention that in ancient times, there was a type of giant dragon called the bloodthirsty demonic dragon. The bloodthirsty demon dragon took pleasure in slaughtering other dragons. Therefore, they had killed too many giant dragons and caused the entire dragon race to be enraged. As a result, the entire dragon race put aside all of their previous grudges and worked together to surround and kill the bloodthirsty demon dragon. In the end, all the bloodthirsty demon dragons were eliminated. Who would have thought that the bloodthirsty demon dragon would appear again after tens of thousands of years? Fortunately, the dragon's aura was only equivalent to that of a grade 5 desolate hunter. Even if the giant dragon's body was abnormally strong and could fight across several ranks, the giant dragon's body was still extremely strong. However, he had over 100 grand desolate masters in the dragon race. How could they not be able to deal with it? Thinking of this, he pointed at Wuxia's huge body and issued a dignified order from his throat. "All disciples of the dragon clan, listen up. This is a bloodthirsty demonic dragon. It enjoys slaughtering the dragon clan. Everyone, do whatever it takes to exterminate it. Kill." When he shouted this, the veins on his neck were clearly visible. This was the aura of the dragon clan. It was fine if they did not make a move, but once they made a move, they had to have an indomitable will and kill in one strike. The dragon clan disciples were a little confused at first. The dragon clan, had been looking forward to a giant dragon for tens of thousands of years. Now that a giant dragon had finally appeared in front of them, they were going to kill it. This was really hard for them to accept. However, when they heard that the bloodthirsty demon dragon enjoyed slaughtering the dragon clan, they all came back to their senses. In the next moment, all the spiritual psyche masters attacked at the same time. To kill an enemy, the most time-saving and labor-saving method was undoubtedly to use spiritual psyche. And in their dragon clan, there were as many as 100 spiritual psyche masters. With over 100 spiritual psyche masters attacking at the same time, killing a giant dragon equivalent to a grade 5 desolate hunter was not a problem. Therefore, these hundreds of spiritual psyche masters spread out their spiritual psyche at the same time and pressed down on Wuxia. However, the expected scene of the giant dragon being unable to move and finally exploding to death did not appear. On the contrary, a huge wave of spiritual psyche pressed back towards them. Bang! The body of a spiritual psyche master suddenly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. It scared the other spiritual psyche master beside him. However, before he could finish his jump, bang! He also exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Following that, all the more than 100 spiritual psyche masters exploded like firecrackers. This scene made the surrounding dragon tribe disciples shudder with fear and trepidation. What's going on? It's also a spiritual psyche master. When the two level 8 spiritual psyche masters of the Dragon Clan saw this, their expressions changed drastically. To be honest, they could also make the bodies of these spiritual psyche masters explode. However, they could not make the bodies of those spiritual psyche masters explode so easily like setting off firecrackers. After all, the bodies of the Dragon Clan disciples had been completely transformed by the dragon blood. Even if the spiritual psyche masters did not focus on their bodies, their physical strength was almost equivalent to that of an ordinary desolate hunter. Even if they were level 8 desolate hunters, they could not easily crush their bodies. It could be seen that the level of this kid's spiritual psyche was higher than the two of them. Now that they thought about it, they had all noticed this guy when he first came. However, in the end, they did not care at all and treated him as an ordinary desolate hunter. Thinking about it, it was really ironic. However, this was not the time for them to regret. While using their spiritual psyche to protect themselves, they shouted to the others, "He's also a spiritual psyche master, and his level is very high." A level 8 spiritual psyche master shouted. Bang! Before he could finish his words, his body had already exploded. His explosion scared the Grand Desolate Master next to him and he jumped away. When the last spiritual psyche master saw this, despair suddenly rose in his heart. As a spiritual psyche master, he knew spiritual psyche masters the best. He knew that the other party's spiritual psyche was so strong that it was useless no matter where he hid, unless he could hide deep underground in a very short period of time. However, he did not have such ability. Therefore, at this moment he was only in despair. In despair. Bang! His body exploded as well. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but in fact it was completed in a short 30 seconds. This scene caused the expressions of all the dragon tribe disciples present to change drastically. These spiritual psyche masters had a very high status in the Dragon Clan. Although spiritual psyche masters had weak bodies, their combat strength was very strong. Ordinary desolate hunters could not get close to spiritual psyche masters at all. Now, more than 100 spiritual psyche masters, including 2 level 8 spiritual psyche masters, were all killed in such a short period of time. How could they not be shocked? Chapter 450. Mo Shi did not move at all, but in just half a minute, he had killed more than 100 spiritual psyche masters of the Dragon Clan. This shocked all of the Dragon Clan members. Even Lord Long, the leader of the Dragon Clan, was shocked. The aura of this giant dragon was only equivalent to that of a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. However, he had a huge spiritual sense. A spiritual psyche master was not scary, and neither was a desolate master. When these two were combined, it was the most terrifying. With the spiritual sense of a spiritual psyche master and the body of a desolate master, how could he not be strong? It seemed that his true combat strength was comparable to that of a level 10 desolate master. At the same time, the disciples of the Dragon Clan were also shocked. However, after they recovered from the shock, their hearts were filled with anger and hatred. Kill him! Kill him! Today! We must not let him leave the Dragon Valley alive. Perhaps it was because the disciples of the Dragon Clan had absorbed the dragon's blood, so they had the pride and unwillingness to admit defeat in their characters. You are very strong, right? I will kill you. Therefore, in the midst of the battle cries, thousands of Dragon Clan members condensed their energy weapons. They tried to bombard Mo Shi. However, bang 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 bang, the disciples of the Dragon Clan once again set off firecrackers. As long as it was a level 5 desolate master, the disciples of the Dragon Clan exploded. At the same time, Mo Shi spread out his wings to protect his body. Boom 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 boom. Those people's energy weapons bombarded Mo Shi's wings. However, they were unable to cause any damage to his tattered wings. On the contrary, the bodies of the thousands of Dragon Clan members who were level 5 Desolate Master and below all exploded. This scene once again made all of the Dragon Clan members present feel fear. They originally thought that the spiritual psyche masters' bodies were not strong enough and would explode. However, now it seemed that as long as it was a level 5 Desolate Master and below, it would explode. This kid's spiritual sense was terrifying. What they did not know was that Emoshur had only used 30% of his dragon's will. He had to be on guard against the old patriarch underground at all times. Otherwise, his draconic will alone could kill all the Dragon Clan's level 5 desolate hunters. However, what puzzled him was that the old patriarch should have appeared when he killed those spiritual readers. How could they watch him kill so many desolate hunters after he had killed all of the spiritual reader masters? Why hasn't he appeared yet? However, this was not the time to dwell on this. Emoshur set up a virtual sentry tower next to him. This way, he could have a panoramic view of his surroundings. At the same time, he flapped his wings and soared into the sky. It let out a dragon's roar. Roar! Previously, he had intended to subdue the dragon race. But since they had no intention of surrendering, then he would just kill them all. Since he was going to be the bloodthirsty demon dragon, he might as well go all the way. Seeing this, the Dragon Clan's patriarch turned to Long Feng and Long Yun and said, "This is your chance." Feng and Yun naturally knew what the Dragon Clan leader meant. Originally, they were supposed to capture Emoshur and interrogate Emoshur about his purpose in coming here. That would be the end of the test. In the end, the two of them had completely failed the test. But now that the patriarch had said this, it was equivalent to giving them another chance. As long as they killed this bloodthirsty demon dragon, the two of them would definitely be recorded in the history of the Dragon Clan. Moreover, Long Shuang's genetic martial arts had been crippled, so he had completely lost his chance. Then, if they killed this bloodthirsty demon dragon, the Dragon Clan's patriarch would definitely be one of them. Thinking of this, the two of them nodded. Then they condensed their energy weapons. A pair of wings condensed behind them. With a flap of their wings, they arrived in the sky. Facing Emoshur, who was more than 150 meters tall, the two of them were not afraid at all. Instead, they were a little excited. Today, the two of us will slay the dragon. Their energy weapons were also in the form of dragon claws. The two of them raised their energy weapons at the same time. Boom! Two thick pillars of light shot out from their energy weapons and blasted towards Emoshur's body. Boom! Boom! These two energy weapons bombarded Emoshur's body. Emoshur's body did not even sway. Emoshur sneered. He suddenly turned around, and that 70-meter-long giant tail swept across. Bang, bang! It smashed fiercely onto the two of them. And it brought the two of them with it, directly smashing into the cliff behind the waterfall beside them. Rumble. Water splashed everywhere, and huge rocks flew everywhere. The waterfall cliff immediately collapsed. The two of them were also buried by the rocks. As for the waterfall, it was no longer a waterfall, but a river. When the surrounding crowd saw this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. The two strongest prodigies of the Dragon Clan couldn't even withstand a single blow from this giant dragon. And their attacks landed on the giant dragon, but they were useless. One had to know that the aura of this giant dragon was far inferior to the two of them. In the end, the combat power displayed was exactly the opposite. This was really out of everyone's expectations. But at this moment, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the place that had just collapsed. Rumble, huge rocks flew everywhere. At the same time, a huge wave more than 30 meters high splashed up. At the top of the huge wave, two figures suddenly soared into the sky. Everyone looked carefully. These two figures were none other than Long Feng and Long Yun from before. The two figures stopped in the sky. They looked at each other. Then, they flapped their wings at the same time and flew into the sky. They flew over 10,000 meters in the sky. The two of them paused for a moment. Then, they turned their heads at the same time and flew towards Emoshur below. While flying, energy once again shot out from the energy weapons of the two. It bombarded towards Emoshur. At the same time, the two of them did not stop. Instead, they merged with the two energies and blasted towards Emoshur at the same time. Long Feng's voice came from the energy, Feng Wuxiang. Long Yun's voice also came from the other energy, Yun Wuchang. Then, the two of them spoke at the same time. Wind and cloud combine, Maha Limitless. In the next moment, the two energies actually merged into one. This new energy kept changing in the air. One moment it was like a long sword, the next moment it was like a saber, the next moment it was like a spear. However, no matter what shape it took, its target remained the same. It stabbed straight towards Emoshur, who was about 500 meters away from the ground. The Dragon Clan's patriarch clenched his fists slightly. Wind and cloud combine, Maha Limitless, was a peerless divine skill passed down by the Dragon Clan. The two people who needed to practice this divine skill were both extremely talented people. Moreover, the two of them must not have the slightest bit of animosity between them. Only in this way could they successfully use wind and cloud combine, Maha Limitless. And the power of this divine skill was extremely terrifying. It was said that as long as this divine skill was used, it would be an invincible existence in the entire continent. Even the most elite Grand Desolate Masters would have to avoid this divine skill. Chapter 451. Wind and Cloud Combination, Maha Immeasurable. The figures of the two people, together with their energy, bombarded Emoshur below. The people on the ground could feel the enormous pressure of that energy. Even the trees on the ground snapped under this enormous pressure. The houses on the ground began to collapse under the immense pressure. Some of the weaker Dragon Clan disciples were unable to raise their heads under this enormous pressure. They had no choice but to use the energy in their bodies to resist this enormous pressure. The Dragon Clan patriarch Long Ba raised his head to look at this energy. There seemed to be a hint of sparkling in his eyes. In his lifetime, he had finally witnessed the birth of this divine skill. In fact, as early as 50 years ago, the two of them had already begun to practice wind and cloud combination. But they had never succeeded. Who would have thought that the attack of this bloodthirsty demon dragon just now seemed to have opened up their conception and governing vessels? The two of them finally succeeded in using wind and cloud combination for the first time. As for Long Shuang, who had lost his arm, he suddenly realized something. It turned out that he had never been the most talented person in the eyes of the patriarch. Wind and cloud combination was passed on to Long Feng and Long Yun, but it was not passed on to him. He seemed to have obtained the dragon vein, but the incomplete dragon vein was actually only used to assist in his cultivation. Other than that, there was no other help, unless he could make up for the incomplete dragon vein. At this moment, Long Shuang had a feeling that the whole world knew that he was an idiot, and only he felt that he was awesome. His body fell to the ground weakly, and at this moment, Emoshur also felt the power of wind and cloud combination. The Dragon Clan actually had such a divine skill. In his senses, such a divine skill was enough to instantly kill a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. Helpless, Emoshur had no choice but to use his mind to instantly vanish on the spot. This was not teleportation, because the Dragon Clan had used some unknown method to seal the space of the Dragon Valley. Therefore, teleportation could not be used here. He hid in his own miniature space. At this moment, the energy of wind and cloud combination had already blasted at the position where Emoshur was just now. However, because of Emoshur's sudden disappearance, the energy lost its target. It was as if a punch with all its strength had landed on a ball of cotton. Feng Yun and Feng Yun quickly separated. If this continued, just the aftermath of their attack would be enough to wipe out more than half of the Dragon Clan disciples nearby. However, after the two clones, they were both panting heavily. Although wind and cloud fusion was extremely powerful, it consumed a lot of energy. Furthermore, he hadn't been able to release all of the energy just now, so there would be a backlash from the energy. This would also have a negative impact on both of them. Beside them, the clan chief and great elder were frowning. They had clearly sealed the space in the Dragon Valley, but that brat had suddenly disappeared. Where did he go? Last time, this brat had disappeared into thin air, and now he was here again. It was indeed a little strange. At this moment, Emoshur's enormous figure appeared once again. Seeing this, the two men hurriedly leaped up, wanting to use wind and cloud fusion again. At the same time, they looked at the patriarch. The clan leader nodded at them, telling them not to worry. This time, they would not let him disappear again. At the same time, the clan leader tossed out an item. That thing instantly split into more than 10 in the air. It surrounded Emoshur. An energy net popped out from each item and covered Emoshur. Seeing this, Emoshur opened his huge mouth. Boom! He spat out a mouthful of black ice breath. Immediately, the temperature within a 5-kilometer radius plummeted. Stones, houses, trees, rivers, almost all of them were frozen in an instant. Those Dragon Clan disciples whose strength was below that of a level 8 Desolate Hunter had no time to dodge. Under the mystic ice breath, they were instantly frozen into ice sculptures. The large nets that flew towards Emoshur were also frozen. They fell to the ground and smashed into ice shards. Dragon Wind and Dragon Cloud had just flown into the air. But at this moment they were instantly frozen, although their strength had reached that of a level 10 Desolate Hunter. But Emoshur's black ice breath was targeted at the two of them. The two of them were frozen in midair and fell to the ground. They still tried to use their energy to break through this ice seal. But Emoshur's dragon claw had already reached over. Crack, crack. The two of them were caught by the dragon claw in midair. Instantly, their muscles and bones were broken and blood splattered. At this point, Wind and Cloud were dead. Seeing this, Lord Long couldn't help but take a step back. He had nurtured Wind and Cloud for more than 50 years, hoping that the two of them could combine Wind and Cloud to make the Dragon Clan famous throughout the flaming Origin continent. But he didn't expect that the first time he saw Wind and Cloud combination would be the last time. And when Long Shuang saw this scene, she was actually gloating. Who would have thought that the two people who were flaunting their strength just now were already dead? As the saying goes, fortune and misfortune lie in wait. If she had practiced Wind and Cloud combination, the one who would die now would probably be her. The rest of the Dragon Clan disciples couldn't help but take 2 steps back when they saw Wind and Cloud being killed in an instant. As Dragon Clan disciples, they naturally knew about Wind and Cloud combination, Maha Immeasurable. Wind and Cloud combination, Maha Immeasurable, had no fixed move. But its power was something that all Dragon Clan disciples yearned for. From ancient times until now, Wind and Cloud combination had only appeared a total of 3 times in history. Every time it appeared, it was an absolutely invincible existence. It was an existence that could change the direction of history. But this 4th time it was broken by someone. Even Wind and Cloud were killed in an instant by the opponent. How strong was this guy? In fact, they didn't know that if Emoshur really took Wind and Cloud as an opponent, the two of them would have been killed in an instant the first time. There was no chance for them to use Wind and Cloud combination at all. Emoshur was just trying to preserve his strength as much as possible, because there was an old monster of the Dragon Clan underground. He had been waiting for that old monster to appear. Before that old monster appeared, he couldn't expose all of his strength. But what surprised him was that of the 3 most talented youths of the Dragon Clan, one was crippled and the other 2 were killed by him. Under such circumstances, that old monster still didn't appear. What was he planning? Did he have to wait for him to destroy the entire Dragon Clan before coming out? What was the point of appearing at that time? At this time, when the Dragon Clan's first elder saw that the 3 most talented geniuses of the Dragon Clan were either dead or crippled, anger rose from his heart, and evil grew in his heart. He said to the Dragon Clan Patriarch beside him, "Patriarch, Long requests to fight." But the Patriarch shook his head. Long, you and I are the last 2 mountains of the Dragon Clan. How can you easily fight?" Chapter 452. Long, you and I are the last 2 mountains of the Dragon Clan. How can we go to war so easily? Patriarch Lord Long stopped Grand Elder Long's idea. Naturally, Emoshur had already heard Lord Long's words. He was a little puzzled. The Dragon Clan still had the old Patriarch hiding underground. From his voice, he should be much stronger than the Patriarch and Grand Elder. Why did the Patriarch say that he and Grand Elder were the last 2 mountains? Could it be that there was something that was hard to say? Thinking of this, Emoshur carefully looked through the Patriarch's memories. A person's memories were huge, especially for a grand desolate master like Lord Long, who had lived for nearly 1,000 years. His memories were so vast that it was unimaginable. It would take at least 10 minutes to look through his memories. While attacking the dragons on the ground, Mosher flipped through the memories of the Dragon Clan patriarch. About 5 minutes later, he found that he had missed something when he looked through the patriarch's memories for the first time. It turned out that the old patriarch of the Dragon Clan hiding underground had gone into seclusion to make a breakthrough. He had been in seclusion for more than 50 years. He was at the critical moment of his breakthrough and was about to break through. If he forcefully came out of seclusion now, these 50 years would be wasted. Moreover, his lifespan was almost up. If he did not break through, he would die of old age soon. Therefore, he had to break through to extend his lifespan. Seeing this, Mosher understood. Since you don't dare to come out, I will destroy your entire Dragon Clan. At this moment, the patriarch of the Dragon Clan, Lord Long, saw that the desolate hunters in front of Mosher were just food. He immediately ordered, "All desolate hunters, retreat. Grand Desolate Masters, take the lead." The desolate hunters who were attacking Mosher retreated one after another. The more than 100 Grand Desolate Masters went to greet Mosher. Mosher secretly sneered. He opened his mouth and let out a long and domineering dragon roar. Roar. In the next moment, his throat had turned fiery red. Then, a ball of fiery red energy was spat out from his mouth. Boom! Scarlet flame dragon breath. This ball of flame energy was as hot as lava. Everything within a radius of 1,000 meters turned into a sea of fire. The desolate hunters who were unable to retreat in time screamed and wailed in the sea of fire. As for those Grand Desolate Masters, they hurriedly condensed energy barriers to resist the scorching flames. At first, they were full of information. The bloodthirsty demon dragon only had the aura of a level 5 desolate hunter. Their barrier should be able to easily block the dragon's fire energy. However, they soon discovered that they were wrong. The flames contained a terrifyingly high temperature. Their light shields melted like snow in front of these flames. Oh no, I can't hold on. How is this possible? Its aura is clearly only that of a 5th-rank desolate hunter. Dodge! Amidst the screams, the Grand Desolate Masters all dodged. Those who were quick enough were barely able to escape. Those who were slightly slower had already drawn the fire to themselves. Ah! No! Quickly put out the fire. Their bodies were burning with raging flames as they screamed and ran. The Grand Desolate Masters who had activated their water-type energy hurriedly used their water-type energy to extinguish the fire. However, they soon discovered that their water-type energy was unable to extinguish such a fire. Only now did they realize how terrifying the dragon's energy was. The dragon's fire energy was something that they, as humans, could not extinguish. At this moment, the level 3 Grand Desolate Master Patriarch, Lord Long, quickly covered these people with his ice-type energy. Only then did the flames on their bodies quickly disappear. Mosher turned his head and looked at Patriarch Lord Long. Lord Long also turned his head and looked straight at Mosher. His gaze was filled with undisguised provocation. After extinguishing the fire just now, he already understood. The bloodthirsty demon dragon's true strength was about the same as his, a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. As long as he and Grand Elder Long worked together, it should not be difficult to kill this guy. Mosher naturally understood the Grand Elder's thoughts. After he transformed into the bloodthirsty demon dragon, he had not truly fought with his full strength. Therefore, he also wanted to have a hearty battle. However, he knew that this was not realistic, because there was still an old monster hiding underground. If he consumed too much energy here, wouldn't it be difficult for him to deal with that old monster if he really couldn't hold it in and came out? Thinking of this, he said in his mind, "System, designated reward Virus 0. The system's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Frowny face. Designated reward requires 1 million evolution points. Virus 0 requires 10 billion evolution points. Would you like to confirm the sign-in? Mosher shook his head helplessly. The price had increased again. Fortunately, the evolution points he had accumulated before had already broken through 1 trillion. Therefore, these 10 billion evolution points were nothing to Missouri Sure. Soon, a virus 0 appeared in his hand. Of course, the virus was too small for these people to notice it. Mo Sure turned his head and looked at a grand desolate master. He flicked his finger lightly. Suddenly, the virus 0 bounced onto the grand desolate master's chest. Then, with a thought, he wanted to detonate the virus 0. However, the system's voice sounded in his mind again, frowny face with the host's current strength. The virus 0 can only be detonated on enemies below the Grand Desolate Master Realm, and can only destroy enemies below the Grand Desolate Master Realm. Hearing this, Mo Sure was a little speechless. It seemed that as his strength increased, the power of the virus 0 was relatively declining. However, it was already powerful enough to destroy enemies below the Grand Desolate Master Realm. After all, there were less than 200 Grand Desolate Masters in the Flaming Origin continent. Moreover, more than 100 Grand Desolate Masters were going to be destroyed today. Therefore, this virus 0 was invincible enough. With a thought, he put away the virus 0 on the Grand Desolate Master. Then, he implanted it into Long Shuang's body. At this moment, the Dragon Patriarch let out a loud shout. All disciples of the Dragon Clan, listen up, activate the Dragon Clan's bloodline and use the giant dragon formation. His voice spread throughout the entire Dragon Valley that was over 100 kilometers in length. In the next moment, the aura of all the Dragon Clan disciples in the Dragon Valley soared. Almost instantly, they reached the peak of level 10 Desolate Master. At the same time, all of them slowly floated up. Seeing this, Mo Sure once again looked through the memories of the Dragon Clan Patriarch. What was the Dragon Clan's bloodline? What was the giant dragon formation? Soon he understood. It turned out that these people had drunk the giant dragon's blood and had a trace of the giant dragon's dragon chi in their bodies. When they used a special method to activate this trace of dragon chi, they could reach the peak of their battle strength. At the same time, the giant dragon formation could condense everyone's battle strength. When they used the giant dragon formation, their combined battle strength was equivalent to a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. Chapter 453. When Mo Sure learned from the memories of the Dragon Clan leader that the Dragon Clan bloodline and the giant dragon formation were extremely powerful, he was also a little surprised. The Dragon Clan, which had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, was still quite something. With the strength of more than 200,000 Desolate Hunters, they were actually able to erupt with the strength of a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. This was really surprising. However, this was not like those movies or novels. Mo Sure would not wait for his opponent to release their ultimate move before making his move. The last method was to not give his opponent a chance to release their ultimate move. With a thought, Mo Sure planted the virus 0 in a Desolate Hunter's body. With another thought, it was as if there was an invisible shockwave, with the Desolate Hunter as the center, spreading out in all directions. In an instant, within a radius of 100 kilometers, all living creatures below the Grand Desolate Master level turned blood red. Whether it was the Desolate Hunters, the mutated Desolate Beasts, the trees, the flowers, the fishes, or the birds. Looking down from the sky, with the Desolate Hunter as the center, a blood-red circle could be seen spreading out in an instant. It formed a huge circle with a radius of 100 kilometers. Within this circle, everything had turned blood-red. Those Desolate Hunters who had just activated their Dragon Clan bloodline and were flying towards the sky, wanting to condense the giant dragon formation, all became sluggish and fell to the ground one after another. Immediately after, Mo Sure's dragon consciousness moved. Shwa. The body of a Desolate Hunter flowed onto the ground like quicksand. The body of another Desolate Hunter beside him also flowed down like quicksand. It was not just humans. The infected trees, flowers, fishes, and birds at the side. In short, all living creatures that had not reached the Grand Desolate Master level flowed onto the ground like quicksand. They turned into blood-red powder. In a short 5 seconds, more than 200,000 Desolate Hunters of the Dragon Clan were annihilated. At the same time, the killing points in Mo Sure's mind were changing crazily. It was increasing rapidly. In the end, It stopped at over 200,000. Killing points, 230-600-100-0000. If he wanted to level up now, he would need to reach 1 million killing points. Now that he had obtained more than 200,000 killing points so easily, Mosher was really happy. Contrary to his mood, all the grand desolate masters of the Dragon Clan felt the opposite. They looked at the blood-red world around them. Seeing the people they were familiar with turn into dust like quicksand, they were all shocked and angry. What shocked him the most was what kind of strange trick this guy had used to turn all the desolate hunters into dust. This was clearly beyond their scope of understanding. They were angry because there were more than 230,000 people in the Dragon Clan. Now, in just a few seconds, there were only 100 of them left. How could they not be angry? In particular, Lord Long, the chief of the Dragon Clan, was trembling in shock and anger. The tens of thousands of years of inheritance of the Dragon Clan was about to end in his hands. And the culprit behind all of this was the bloodthirsty demonic dragon before him. Preposterous. Simply preposterous. In their shock and anger, everyone looked at Mosher with eyes that seemed to be able to spit fire. Kill! Kill him! Kill this bastard! These dragon race grand desolate masters had nearly lost their rationality in their anger. They had the blood of dragons in their bodies, so it was impossible for them to retreat and run away. The prideful genes of dragons did not allow them to run away. Then they could only fight. They could only kill the enemy in front of them. However, although the chief was angry, he was still rational. Everyone else in the Dragon Clan was already dead. But fortunately, none of the Grand Desolate Masters had died. No matter where these 100 Grand Desolate Masters went, they would definitely be an invincible force. When the time came, with these 100 Grand Desolate Masters, he would be able to quickly rebuild the Dragon Clan. At that time, the Dragon Clan would still be the strongest existence on this continent. Therefore, he ordered everyone, retreat! Although the Dragon Clan was angry with the chief's order, they seemed to have sobered up a little. Although they were unwilling, they still slowly retreated. Seeing this, Mosher sneered in his heart. Retreat now? Don't you think it's a little too late? Thinking of this, he flapped his wings and soared into the sky. After circling in the sky once, he was about to dive down to the ground. However, at this moment, an old but powerful voice suddenly came from underground. Bastard Andanruo! In the next moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky without any warning, confronting Mosher from a distance. This person had a pair of black wings behind his back, hovering in the sky. A head of messy white hair fluttered in the wind. He was wearing a black robe without any decorations. He looked slovenly like a sloppy old man. However, the aura emitted from his body suppressed everyone present. It even far surpassed Mosher. When the great elder below saw this person, he could not help but be surprised. Old chief! When the other grand desolate masters saw this, they were all surprised. It's really the old chief. The old chief is really still alive. That's great, our Dragon Clan is saved. I heard that the old chief had already become a level 5 Grand Desolate Master many years ago. I don't believe that a level 5 Grand Desolate Master can't deal with this huge dragon. When the Chief Lord Long saw this, his eyes were filled with excitement, and his eyes were flickering. He hurriedly lowered his head and half knelt on the ground. Lord Long, lead all the disciples of the Dragon Clan. When he said this, he paused for a moment. How could there be any disciples of the Dragon Clan? More than 200,000 disciples were already dead. His Adam's apple squirmed, and he said with grief and indignation, lead all the remaining disciples of the Dragon Clan to welcome the old chief. All the grand desolate masters of the Dragon Clan also lowered their heads and half knelt on the ground. The remaining disciples of the Dragon Clan welcomed the old chief. However, the old chief did not even look at them. Not only did he not look, the old chief was actually cursing in his heart. Useless trash. Just because you can't kill this kid, you forced me to come out of seclusion. Not only can I not break through again, after coming out of seclusion this time, my lifespan will soon be up. It's all because of you. However, he obviously could not say this in front of Emoshur. Moreover, the Dragon Clan was in a life-and-death situation. As a member of the Dragon Clan, and the old chief of the Dragon Clan, he naturally had the responsibility to stand up and protect the Dragon Clan. At this moment, his eyes were fixed on Emoshur. The aura on his body had already reached the peak. Judging from his aura, he was only one step away from becoming a level 6 Grand Desolate Master. A level 6 Grand Desolate Master was almost the peak existence in the entire Flaming Origin continent. His eyes were filled with murderous intent and fury. From his mouth came a voice filled with killing intent. "Kid, you dare to behave atrociously in my Dragon Clan? Die!" Chapter 454. The old patriarch of the Dragon Clan said in a voice filled with killing intent, "Kid, you dare to behave atrociously in my Dragon Clan? Die!" Then his aura rose again, almost reaching the limit of a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. Seeing this, all the disciples of the Dragon Clan were secretly delighted. The old patriarch's aura was so strong and terrifying. After that kid transformed into a giant dragon, he was powerful and could fight against a level 1 Grand Desolate Master as a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. However, this was the end of it. It was impossible for him to challenge a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. In fact, they were right. With Emoshur's strength, it was naturally impossible for him to challenge a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. If it was so easy to challenge a Grand Desolate Master, there wouldn't be so few Grand Desolate Masters in this world. Moreover, this was a peak level 5 Grand Desolate Master. He was almost the number 1 person in the entire continent. How could Emoshur defeat such an existence? However, Emoshur still had his trump card. He sneered and let out a dragon's roar. "So what if I behave atrociously?" Then, with a thought, another figure appeared in the sky without any warning. Its 1,500-meter-long body meandered in the sky like a dragon. "With the sea dragon clone, what could you do to me if I peed, let alone behave atrociously in the Dragon Clan?" The sea dragon clone was 1,500 meter long and had a diameter of more than 70 meter long. 1/3 of the sky in the Dragon Valley was occupied by this body. The light in the Dragon Valley was much dimmer now. Its scales shone with a dark black luster under the sunlight. On its forehead, there were 2 huge bulges that seemed to be swollen, for thick and sharp claws, each of which was like a towering tree. It opened its mouth and let out a roar that seemed to want to swallow everything in the world. Ayo! Roar! With this roar, all living things within a 500-kilometer radius trembled. When all the disciples of the Dragon Clan saw this, their expressions changed drastically. Just a moment ago, they thought that their old patriarch was already invincible in this world and could easily kill this brat. But now, compared to this huge creature, their old patriarch seemed so small. The old clan leader of the dragon tribe was also secretly shocked at this moment. This creature's aura was similar to his. But why did he feel an inexplicable sense of fear when facing it from afar? Was it because its body was too big? Impossible. He had lived for almost 1,000 years, and he had seen many creatures that were larger than it. However, there was no creature that could make him feel that kind of fear. Why was this happening? Just as he was secretly astonished, the sea dragon clone had already moved. Its figure flickered as it flew toward the Dragon Clan's patriarch. Although the Dragon Clan's clan leader was terrified, he had no way out. If he retreated, the Dragon Clan would be exterminated. He roared, "You're courting death!" At the next moment, a genetic martial art condensed in his right arm. Moreover, the moment his genetic weapon appeared, its edges had already lit up. Clearly, energy had been added to it. However, he didn't shoot out this energy. Instead, he attached it to his genetic martial art to fight. High-level battles often required the most basic fighting methods. The reason why his genetic martial art didn't release energy was because that kind of fighting method wasted too much energy. Moreover, shooting energy from a distance would give the enemy time to dodge. Therefore, this kind of fighting method was far worse than adding energy to the weapon before fighting in close combat. At this moment, he was using this kind of fighting method. His figure flashed and he was already behind the sea dragon clone. His speed was extremely fast. He must have activated his wind attribute talent. When he arrived behind the sea dragon clone, his genetic martial art stabbed fiercely at the back of the sea dragon clone. Crackle. A few ear-piercing sounds were heard. The back of the sea dragon clone rubbed against his genetic martial art, creating a series of sparks. However, that was all. After this series of sparks, he looked at the back of the sea dragon clone. Not to mention being injured, there wasn't even a trace left behind. Seeing this, the Dragon Clan's patriarch was shocked. What a strong defense. At this moment, the sea dragon clone turned around and whipped its tail over. He hurriedly used his wind attribute energy and dodged quickly. The sea dragon clone's giant tail, which was more than 70 meters thick, narrowly flashed under him. He thought to himself that it was a close call. This guy's speed wasn't slow either. However, before he could finish his thought, he suddenly felt a gust of wind blow past. He was involuntarily swept into the gust of wind. It turned out that the sea dragon clone's huge tail swept past too quickly. The airflow brought him in. This was the disadvantage of being a wind attribute cultivator. His body was too light. Fortunately, as a wind attribute cultivator, he still had a good understanding of the wind. Relying on his experience, he quickly stabilized his body. However, just as he stabilized his body, he found that a huge shadow had already smashed towards him. Bang! Before he could say the verb in his mouth, he was hit by the sea dragon clone's huge tail. It turned out that Mo sure knew that this person was a wind attribute cultivator and was extremely fast. It was impossible to hit him with a single blow. Therefore, his first attack was only to stir up a gust of wind and sweep the old guy into the airflow. When he was involuntarily swept in, the sea dragon clone's second wave of attack had already arrived. There was nowhere for him to hide. Boom! The old patriarch of the Dragon Clan was like a fly that had been hit by a fly swatter as he crashed to the ground. He was smashed into the ground. Crack, crack. Cracks began to spread all around him. All the disciples of the Dragon Clan were aghast when they saw this. They had thought that the old patriarch would definitely be able to destroy that brat. In the end, the old patriarch couldn't withstand a single blow from that giant creature. At this moment, in the huge pit on the ground, the old patriarch's face was covered in blood. Most of the aura on his body had dissipated. He had never dreamed that he, who was almost the #1 person on the continent, would one day be unable to withstand a single blow from a giant creature. At this moment, he was constantly trying to circulate the wind attribute energy in his body. He wanted to escape. Even if he knew that his time was up, even if he escaped today, he wouldn't live for long. However, survival was human instinct. Even he was no exception. However, at this moment, on the sea dragon clone's body, a blood-red tentacle shot over like an arrow. Puff, it pierced into his body. Then, the tentacle retracted. The barbs on the tentacle immediately hooked his body and dragged him into the air. Chapter 455. A tentacle shot out from the body of the sea dragon clone. It dragged the old patriarch of the Dragon Clan, who was trying to escape, into the air. The old patriarch of the Dragon Clan wanted to struggle. But soon, he realized that the tentacle had already grown into hundreds and thousands of tiny tentacles in his body. They crawled all over his muscles. If he tried to break free by force, his body would be torn apart. At the same time, as these tentacles continued to extend, his body was in intense pain. He kept struggling, and his legs kept trembling. However, this pain didn't last long. At a certain moment, hiss, the tentacles in his body quickly separated, tearing his body into hundreds and thousands of pieces. At this point, the strongest person of the Dragon Clan, the #1 person on the continent, the old patriarch of the Dragon Clan, was dead. At the same time, the expressions of everyone in the Dragon Clan changed drastically. The old patriarch, who they had placed high hopes on, couldn't even last half a minute in front of this huge creature. He was easily torn to pieces. Then, was there any hope for the rest of them to survive? Thinking of this, they all turned to look at the patriarch. Seeing this, the patriarch of the dragon clan shook his head helplessly and closed his eyes in pain. At this moment, he had already seen through it. The dragon clan was finished. The dragon clan, which had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, was really ruined in his hands. He was the sinner of the dragon clan. Even if he died, he would have no face to see the ancestors of the dragon clan. However, he couldn't just watch the dragon clan be destroyed like this. He glanced at all the dragon clan grand desolate masters and said, "Disciples of the dragon clan, scatter and run, no matter who escapes. Don't forget that you are the disciples of the dragon clan. One day you must revitalize the dragon clan." All the disciples of the dragon clan were stunned when they heard this. They didn't expect that their dragon clan, known as the strongest faction on the continent, would one day have to run away. But under such circumstances, what else could they do but run? Thus, these 100 or so grand desolate masters fled in all directions. However, could they escape? In front of the speed of Emoshur and the sea dragon clone, their so-called escape looked like a joke. With a thought from Emoshur, more than 50 huge tentacles grew out of the sea dragon clone's body. Each tentacle is like a sharp arrow, piercing towards the bodies of these grand desolate masters. The bodies of the grand desolate masters were very strong. Even the genetic weapons of the desolate masters would not be able to harm them if they did not add energy. But in front of these tentacles, it was like a piece of paper. Puff, 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 puff. Everyone, including the patriarch and the great elder, was pierced by the tentacles. Moreover, once these tentacles entered their bodies, they would quickly absorb their blood and use the nourishment of this blood to grow roots in their bodies. These roots would crawl all the muscles in their bodies at an extremely fast speed. In the end, if they used too much force, their muscles would be torn apart. It was literally being torn to pieces. Moreover, even if they didn't use any strength, the tentacles would quickly tear them apart. Rip, rip, rip. With the sound of cloth being torn apart, these people's bodies were all torn apart. In that instant, the entire Dragon Valley finally fell completely silent. Apart from the sound of flowing water, there was no other sound. The entire dragon race, the #1 faction on the continent, had been destroyed by Emoshur alone. Of course, one could not say that Emoshur was the #1 person on the continent just because of this. The flame-beginning continent was huge. 56 states, and each state was much, much larger than the previous Earth. In such a big place, Emoshur did not know how many hidden experts there were. However, he knew that after annihilating the Dragon Clan, he had already entered the ranks of the top powerhouses. As long as he was given some more time, when he became a level 10 Desolate Master, the Sea Dragon clone might become a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. At that time, he would truly be standing at the top of the pyramid of the flame-beginning continent. Because no matter how exaggerated it was, there had never been an existence stronger than a Grand Desolate Master on the flame-beginning continent. What kind of realm was stronger than a Grand Desolate Master? No one knew. At this time, Emoshur looked at the kill points in his mind. Kill points: 2316001000000. Every Grand Desolate Master killed gave him 10 kill points. Next, if he wanted to get more kill points, he would have to go to those hunting grounds to hunt infected creatures. Otherwise, he could not go on a killing spree all over the continent and kill those Desolate Masters. After all, although he was a bloodthirsty demon dragon, he had evolved from a human. He still had a human mind. It was impossible for him to go on a killing spree. Next, Emoshur went through all of the dragon race's storehouses and treasure vaults. Many things of the dragon race could be used in the base. For example, the dragon race had an exaggerated number of hundreds of millions of crystal source stones. And this was only their inventory. In their Dragon Valley, there were as many as 3 crystal source veins. Emoshur had the thought of simply moving the base here. But after thinking about it, he gave up for the time being. The base had just been developed and the factory and other things had just been built. If he moved now, it would be a waste. However, he could not just leave the 3 crystal source veins to others. Mo thought about it and left more than 100 virus clones here. These virus clones basically had the strength of a level 5 Desolate Master and a level 5 Long Nian Shi. 100 level 5 Desolate Master and a level 5 Long Nian Shi combined were equivalent to the strength of a few Grand Desolate Masters. In the end, Mo put all the things he had plundered into his micro-world. Then, with a thought, he teleported 1,000 kilometers away. Now, everyone in the dragon race had been wiped out. The dragon race's chief, great elder, and their old chief were all dead. Naturally, the spatial restriction could no longer take effect. Mo easily teleported thousands of kilometers away. Then, he found the right direction and flew in the direction of Hunting Island No. 1. 2 days after Mo left, the news gradually spread. There were overwhelming reports on the internet, on TV, and in all kinds of media. Shocking news. Dragon Valley slaughtered. Dragon race annihilated. Who wiped out the No. 1 force in one night? Sorry, Dragon race. Dragon Valley is not Dragon Valley. Sorry, No. 1 force. You are not enough. These reports were crazily spread among all the media. Everyone's first reaction when they heard the news was disbelief. Scram to the side. Dragon race annihilated? Kid, you must be crazy. I heard that the No. 1 force of the dragon race has 40 to 50 Grand Desolate Masters. Who dares to touch them? 40 to 50? I heard that there are 70 to 80. Whoever dares to touch them is courting death. Chapter 456. After Mo annihilated the Dragon Clan, he left the Dragon Valley and returned to the base. At the same time, the news of the annihilation of the Dragon Valley had spread across the entire continent. The annihilation of the Dragon Valley could be seen everywhere on the internet, television, various news media, and gossip literature. On a certain online forum, the Dragon Valley, which had been established for tens of thousands of years, was annihilated overnight. Who did this? The Dragon Valley is the No. 1 force on the continent. All the other forces could only tremble in fear in front of the Dragon Valley. But now it has been annihilated. This is unbelievable. I was thinking of visiting the Dragon Clan when I became stronger in a few years. I didn't expect the Dragon Clan to be annihilated. According to reliable sources, the Dragon Clan has more than 70 Grand Desolate Masters and more than 100 Spiritual Psyche Masters. This strength is enough to crush any force on the continent. Now that it has been annihilated, the person who did this must be extremely powerful. In a certain restaurant, people were watching the news report on the television and the aerial footage while eating. On the screen, the entire Dragon Valley had turned blood red. There were no trees, flowers, plants, animals, or humans. This was a stark contrast to the footage of the Dragon Valley in the past. An old man who looked to be in his 60s was shocked. To be able to annihilate the Dragon Valley, that person's strength is simply heaven-defying. Are you kidding? The Dragon Valley has more than 200,000 Dragon Clan members. Is that something that can be annihilated by one person? Someone beside him immediately questioned. The old man in his 60s shook his head slowly. Young man, you know nothing about strength. Logically speaking, it's impossible for anyone to do this. To annihilate all the Dragon Clan members in the Dragon Valley, it would require a very large team. The movement of such a large team is likely to attract attention. But until now, there have been no reports of such a team. This can only mean one thing: that team doesn't exist. So, it can only be someone with heaven-defying strength who annihilated the entire Dragon Clan. When I passed by Hunting Island No. 1, I saw a similar scene. All the creatures on the island were turned into blood-red powder. There was almost no life there. There was a base in the center of Hunting Island No. 1. Out of curiosity, I went there to investigate. Although the people there didn't say much, it could be inferred from their words that they had a very powerful leader. It was their leader who destroyed the rest of the creatures on the first Hunting Island and brought them to the first Hunting Island. Everyone was surprised when they heard this. But I heard that there was a change in the first Hunting Island, and it was taken over by a group of newcomers. The leader of that group of rookies has such powerful strength? The old man shook his head. No one can say for sure. In short, I'm guessing that it's probably the new island master of Hunting Island number 1. In a small city at the border of the Cloud State, Han Jiansheng was sitting on the grass, enjoying the scenery on the other side of the river while drinking wine. At this moment, Han Lubai quickly walked over. Dad, the Dragon Clan has been exterminated. Han Jiansheng was taken aback. In his eyes, the Dragon Clan was the most powerful force in the world. Even though he was known to be able to freeze 16 states with a single sword, he was still extremely insignificant in the face of the Dragon Clan. More than 50 years ago, he had made a trip to the Dragon Clan. At that time, he could feel that there were no less than 100 Grand Desolate Masters in the Dragon Clan. How could such a powerful Dragon Clan be exterminated? Sounded like a joke. However, when he saw the aerial image of the Dragon Valley on Han Lubai's multifunction watch, he finally believed it. Dad, who do you think did it? Han Lubai asked. Han Jiansheng pondered for a moment and replied, I can't think of anyone in this world. However, if I have to name one person, I guess it's only that kid, Sure. Ha! Han Lubai opened her mouth in surprise and shook her head. Dad, when you said that he was the one who destroyed the Celestial Gold Trisect, I reluctantly believed you. But now you're saying that he was the one who destroyed the Dragon Clan. Isn't that too exaggerated? Even you, a level 2 Grand Desolate Master, can't do it. How could he do it? Han Jiansheng said, On the surface, that guy's strength is only that of a Grand Desolate Master, but in battle, he can often erupt with strength far stronger than a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, and he can transform into a dragon. Most importantly, he can summon a creature that is 1,000 meters long, and that creature's strength far exceeds his own. Han Lubai shook her head again. Even so, it's impossible to destroy the Dragon Clan. Han Jiansheng nodded. It's indeed impossible. But a moment later, looking at the setting sun, he spoke again slowly. But nothing is impossible when it comes to this kid. Of course, only a few people could speculate that all this was done by Sure. Most people didn't know who had destroyed the Dragon Clan. The internet was full of wild guesses. Some people even said that only a god could destroy the Dragon Clan. On the first Hunting Island, Sure saw this on the internet and smiled faintly. He was actually called a god. This really surprised him. But speaking of God, he was indeed a god in the miniature world. But the miniature world was really too small. It would be interesting if he could upgrade the miniature world to a planet in the future. At the same time, with the improvement of his strength, he felt that the level of the Dragon Palace should also be upgraded. The Dragon Clan had so many Grand Desolate Masters. Although the other powerful forces on the continent weren't as strong as the Dragon Clan, each force should have a few Grand Desolate Masters. The base could only defend against attacks below the Grand Desolate Master level, which was obviously not enough. Thinking of this, Sure said in his mind, System, sign in after destroying the Dragon Clan. The system's voice sounded. Sign in successful. Sign in event. Destroy the Pseudo-Dragon Clan. Sign in reward. Dragon Palace upgrade. Sure nodded with a smile. As expected, the Dragon Palace could be upgraded again. It takes 48 hours to upgrade the Dragon Palace. During the upgrade, the defense system of the Dragon Palace cannot be activated. The warning system of the Dragon Palace cannot be activated. Do you want to upgrade? Sure nodded. Upgrade. The next moment, a progress bar appeared in his mind. It showed, Upgrade progress 0%. In the next 2 days, Sure was free. Every day, apart from eating and sleeping, he would accompany him around the island. At noon 2 days later, the progress bar in his mind finally reached 100%. Chapter 457. 2 days later, at noon, the progress bar in Sure's mind finally reached 100%. At the same time, a system notification appeared in his mind. Frowny Face Dragon Palace, successfully upgraded. Upgrade details. 1. Absolute defense. Dragon Palace can withstand any attack from a Grand Desolate Master below level 10, including a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. 2. Follow your heart. After this upgrade, Dragon Palace will be more convenient to move. As long as the Dragon King wills it, Dragon Palace will move to the desired location. 3. Refining platform. After this upgrade, Dragon Palace will have a new refining platform. Anyone below the Grand Desolate Master level would only need 10 days to become a Grand Desolate Master after entering the Desolate Refining Platform. Host cannot use it. Mosher slowly nodded his head as he read. Every one of them was very useful. Absolute defense. In the history of the Flaming Land, no one could invade Dragon Palace. Follow your heart. In the future, no matter where Dragon Palace is, it will be very convenient. The refining platform was even more useful. With the refining platform, Dragon Palace will be able to produce a Grand Desolate Master every 10 days. However, the last sentence in the brackets was a little hurtful. What did it mean that the host could not use it? Originally, he thought that with the refining platform, he could be promoted to Grand Desolate Master after 10 days. However, the host could not use it. What a scam. The system seemed to have felt Mosher's emotions and prompted in his mind frowny face. Although the host cannot use the refining platform, with the refining platform, the host's level can be linked to the number of Grand Desolate Masters produced by the refining platform. What does that mean? Mosher asked. The system replied frowny face. When the refining platform produces 10 Grand Desolate Masters, the host's level will automatically increase by 1. When 100 Grand Desolate Masters are produced, the host's level will increase by 1, and so on. Mosher thought for a while. Producing 1 Grand Desolate Master required 10 days. Producing 10 Grand Desolate Masters required 100 days. 1 level in 100 days was a little slow. If other people knew what Mosher was thinking, they would probably want to kick him to death. Normally, after becoming a Grand Desolate Master, they would need to train hard for 10 years, dozens of years, or even hundreds of years to increase by 1 level. You don't do anything and you can increase by 1 level in 3 months. You think it's slow? Why don't you just go to heaven? Mosher suddenly had an idea and asked the system, "Can I move the Dragon Palace into the miniature world?" As long as he could move the Dragon Palace to the miniature world, everything there would be under his control. Time was not a problem at all. The system replied frowny face, "In the miniature world, you are already an omnipotent god. Do you still need to shorten the time to increase your strength?" If that's the case, then I can't." The system poured a bucket of cold water on Mosher. "That won't do. The host can only use divine power to increase his strength in the miniature world and cannot be forced into the real world." Mosher could not help but shake his head. The system had seen through it. Since he could not forcefully increase his strength, Mosher did not dwell on it. However, he secretly comforted himself that the increase in his strength was already very abnormal. Don't be too perverted and leave others a way out. As the saying goes, leave a way out for others so that we can meet again in the future. After that, Mosher followed the system's instructions and came to the center of the Dragon Palace. Sure enough, a stone platform had already appeared there. The stone platform was not tall, only about a foot tall. It was also not big, just enough for one person to sit on. Mosher carefully studied it for a while, but could not figure out what the stone platform was made of. He used Dragon's telekinesis to investigate and found nothing special about it. Following the principle of not thinking about things that he did not understand, Mosher immediately called Emma over. Emma had not seen Mosher for a long time. When she saw Mosher, there was a subtle gentleness in her eyes. Mosher did not notice this. She pointed at the black stone platform and said to Mosher, "Sit on it and see what changes will happen in 10 days. Emma glanced at her son beside her. Mosher naturally knew what she meant and said, "Don't worry. Happy will take care of your son for these 10 days. Emma was naturally not worried about Mosher, and she was not worried about Happy either. She nodded and sat on the platform. As soon as she sat on it, she felt a majestic energy enter her body from the stone platform. This energy came suddenly and was extremely majestic. She, who was unprepared, was almost unable to bear it. Fortunately, this energy seemed to be limited to a level that she could barely bear. In just a few minutes, the energy she absorbed was more than what she usually absorbed from desolate beasts in a month. Emma could not help but feel happy. Emoshur said to her, "Calm your mind and start cultivating." Emma hurriedly nodded, "Yes." She then calmed her mind and began to exhale and inhale slowly. Emoshur could also clearly feel Emma's aura rapidly increasing. Emoshur said, "Don't come down during this period. You will know the result in 10 days. Emma was cultivating and did not have time to answer, but her eyebrows twitched slightly, indicating that she understood. Then, Emoshur called Happy over and told her to take care of Emma's son for the next 10 days. For the next 10 days, Emoshur lived a leisurely and carefree life. With his current strength and the Azure Dragon clone, he was definitely a top-tier expert on the continent, even if he was not invincible. There was also nothing urgent to do. He did not need to seize the time to increase his strength like in the past. So he planned to stay in the Dragon Palace for a few more days to see the effects of the refining platform. 10 days was both slow and fast. Emoshur did not seem to realize that 10 days had passed. In these 10 days, Emma had been cultivating on the refining platform. Emoshur had already instructed that no one was allowed to approach the refining platform. The others did not know what Emma was doing, but they knew that Emoshur's orders were imperial edicts. So in these 10 days, no one dared to approach the refining platform. Even the room where the refining platform was located was not approached by anyone. With Emma's current strength, it was completely possible for her to not eat or drink during cultivation. Naturally, she did not need to excrete. At noon, Emoshur brought Emma's son to the refining platform. He opened the demonic dragon's eye and saw that Emma was still a 6th-level desolate hunter. But Emma's aura was much stronger than before. Judging by her aura, she had reached the peak of a 10th-level desolate hunter. Looking at the time, there were still more than 2 minutes to the 10 days. Emoshur waited quietly. 2 minutes later, the aura on Emma's body rose again. In just 10 seconds, it was dozens of times stronger than before. This time, the aura rose very quickly and violently. But the time was very short. In just 5 seconds, it stopped. Chapter 458. Emma's aura was rising at an extremely fast speed. In just 5 seconds, it had increased by dozens of times. After 5 seconds, it stopped rising. It began to gradually stabilize. At this time, Emoshur looked again with the mystic dragon's eye. Name: Emma. Race: Blood Clan. Level: Level 1 Great Desolate Master. Emoshur was puzzled. Shouldn't it be a super-evolved blood clan or a super-evolved blood clan? The system's voice came frowny face all humanoid creatures, whether zombies, blood clan, werewolves, or zombies. After reaching the level of a Great Desolate Master, they are called Great Desolate Masters. Emoshur nodded. It was easier to remember this. It saved him the trouble of having to calculate the level of a super-evolved blood clan in his mind when he met one. Just like when he was learning English, when he encountered an English word, the meaning of the word didn't appear in his mind first. Instead, he had to translate it into Chinese first, and then he knew what the word meant. Troublesome. It was a lot easier to do this now. Emma opened her eyes at this time. She didn't pay attention to the changes in her body at first. Instead, she got off the refining platform and pulled her son over. She held her son's face to see if he had lost weight these days. Not only did her son not lose weight, he seemed to have gained a bit of weight. She stroked her son's head and said to Happy next to her, "Thank you." Happy shook his head and gestured. "Sister Emma, we're all family. You don't have to say this." Emma nodded, but her eyes were still filled with gratitude. For her, raising her strength to a Great Desolate Master was not as important as taking care of her son for 10 days. After seeing that her son was fine, she noticed the change in her strength. She felt the aura in her body and the surging energy in her body. She looked at her hands in disbelief. Then she looked at Emoshur. I was promoted to a Great Desolate Master?" Emoshur smiled and nodded. Emma was even more in disbelief. While circulating the energy in her body, she said in surprise, 10 days! Emma sure nodded again. Emma was even more surprised. Her strength was only equivalent to a level 6 Desolate Master. Now, in just 10 days she became a great Desolate Master. This was a little too exaggerated. But her surprise didn't last long. After all, in front of Emma, even more ridiculous things had happened. Disregarding everything else, she suspected that the news of the Dragon Clan's annihilation that had spread throughout the continent in the past few days had something to do with Emma. There were many experts in this world. There were also people stronger than Emma. But who could destroy the entire Dragon Clan in a single night? Other than Emma, she couldn't think of anyone else. Thank you, Master, Emma said gratefully. Emma shook his head and said, call the little monk over. Emma immediately nodded and brought her son to find the little monk. After a while, he found the little monk. Although the little monk had followed Emma here, he kept shaking his head and mumbling to himself. This kind of algorithm. There's a problem. That's right, using the Sorgate's algorithm should be useful. Then he shook his head. That doesn't seem right either. It seemed that this guy had gone mad. As a desolate hunter, he did not care about cultivation at all. He only cared about mechas. But now that he had reached Emosher's level, he deeply understood that mechas were basically useless in battles between desolate hunters, especially Grand Desolate Masters. He used to think that mechas were the future of the base. So, he did not hesitate to spend a lot of time and energy to equip the base with a large number of mechas. But in battles between desolate hunters and above, mechas were basically live targets. Now, mecha technology in the Flaming Land had reached a bottleneck. It was difficult to improve in a short period of time. Wasting time on mecha was not a rational thing to do. So, Emosher wanted to let the little monk get out of the mecha as soon as possible and embark on the path of cultivation. Monk, sit on it and cultivate. Emosher pointed at the refining platform and said. Hearing this, the little monk shook his head like a baby. No, cultivating is too time-consuming. You must know that wasting time is equivalent to murdering for money. Boss, you're not really thinking of harming me, are you? Amitba, you're too kind. Emosher laughed. With that little money of yours, is it worth it for me to scheme for you? Hearing this, the little monk had a look of disbelief. He tightened his collar and took 2 steps back. Boss, are you thinking of raping me? Emosher glared at him. Get lost. Okay. The little monk said and was about to leave. Emosher was speechless. Sit on it and cultivate for 10 days. Otherwise, you're not allowed to touch mechas anymore. Emosher's words had a hint of hidden meaning. Seeing this, the little monk was slightly stunned. Then he sat on it reluctantly. But there was still a look of pain between his brows. Obviously, in his opinion, sitting here and cultivating was too much of a waste of time. If he had the time, he might as well study mechas. But since his boss was angry, he did not dare to say anything more. In order to continue studying mechas in the future, he could only endure for now. Emosher was still afraid that the little monk would not be honest. So he said to Emma, watch him. Emma quickly nodded. Yes. Therefore, under Emma's strict supervision, the little monk did not dare to leave for the past 10 days. He could only cultivate there obediently. 10 days later, when Emma said time is up, the little monk could not wait to jump up. He planned to run back to his workshop and continue studying mechas. Not seeing mechas for 10 days was like not eating or drinking for 10 days. He was already unbearably thirsty. But when he jumped up, his body jumped up. Unexpectedly, his whole body crashed into the roof. He directly crashed through the roof. The little monk was so shocked that he kept shouting in the air. Amitba, oh my god, Amitba, F*CK, 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 F*CK. After a while, he finally landed on the ground. He raised his hands and looked at them in astonishment. Emma and the others also came out at this time. Emma's heart was also filled with shock. The little monk had also advanced to a Grand Desolate Master. One must know that the little monk was only a level 1 Desolate Master before. In just 10 days, he advanced to a level 1 Desolate Master. On average, he would advance by 1 level every day. This speed was simply unheard of. In her shock, Emma could not help but answer the little monk's question. You advanced to a Grand Desolate Master. Huh? The little monk scratched his bald head in surprise. Big sister, you are not joking, right? In 10 days, I advanced by a whole realm? Let me tell you, if you lie, you will be going to hell. You have to think thrice before you speak. Amitba. Emma laughed. Can't you feel it for yourself? The little monk nodded. You are right. Soon after, the energy in his body began to circulate. Chapter 459. When the small monk heard Emma's words, he tried to circulate the energy in his body. After doing so, he immediately shouted, F***CK. He felt that the energy in his body was unprecedentedly abundant. Not only was it abundant, it was even majestic. The energy in his body was like raging waves. Before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. After a moment, he felt that the aura in his body far exceeded that of a desolate hunter. He looked at himself in disbelief, then at Emma, and finally at Emoshur. Boss, I became a Grand Desolate Master? Emoshur smiled and said, Yes. The small monk was pleasantly surprised. F***CK. So magical? He turned his head and looked at the black and unremarkable refining platform. Boss, this thing is so powerful. Emoshur did not say anything else. Go and call Guojutao over. The small monk nodded. Yes, boss. After saying that, he quickly left. However, when he was about to walk out of the workshop, he suddenly thought of something. He turned his head and asked, Oh right, did I say F***CK just now? Emoshur asked back, What do you think? The small monk had a face of regret. Sorry, master. I said vulgar words again. I deserve to be beaten. After saying that, he slapped his mouth twice and quickly turned around and left. Emoshur and Happy looked at each other and smiled. This small monk was really a clown. However, with such a person by their side, their mood would be much better. Next, after another 10 days, Guojutao also successfully became a Grand Desolate Master. 3 Grand Desolate Masters in a month. This matter caused a huge commotion in the entire base. Sai, did you know? Mr. Mo has a magical platform. If you cultivate on it, you can become a Grand Desolate Master in 10 days. In this month, our base had 3 more Grand Desolate Masters. F***CK. Are you serious? Grand Desolate Masters are the top existences in the continent. I heard that the other Grand Desolate Masters are basically old fellows who have cultivated for 300 to 500 years. You said that Mr. Mo can make a Grand Desolate Master in 10 days? That's too scary. Be careful with your words. What do you mean by Mr. Mo can make a Grand Desolate Master in 10 days? Does everyone have the chance to become a Grand Desolate Master? In the entire continent, there were only about 200 Grand Desolate Masters. Previously, when the dragon race was destroyed, more than 100 of them had died. Now, of the billions of people in the base, there were less than 100 Grand Desolate Masters left. Now, the base was able to produce 3 Grand Desolate Masters in a short month. How could these people not be excited? Of course, at the same time that this matter caused a huge commotion, Guojutao had already issued a death order. This matter was strictly prohibited from being spread. Those who violated the order would be killed and their entire families would be sent back to Earth. Perhaps there were people who were not afraid of death, but sending their whole families back to Earth would make them afraid. After living here for more than 2 years, no one wanted to go back to Earth. Whether it was the level of technological development or the strength of the people's cultivation physiques, it was far from what Earth could compare with. What was more, the Dragon Palace was right here. Cultivating in Dragon Palace was already much better than cultivating in the outside world. Now, there was this black stone platform that could allow one to become a Grand Desolate Master within 10 days. In other words, as long as they were patient enough, everyone in their base would definitely be able to reach the Grand Desolate Master level. They had reached the pinnacle of the Flaming Dawn continent. It had to be known that after becoming a Grand Desolate Master, one's lifespan would exceed 500 years. And the higher the level of a Grand Desolate Master, the longer their lifespan would be. Who did not want to live for a few more 100 years? Therefore, they naturally would not be stupid enough to violate the order and spread this matter. Seeing that everything was more or less arranged, Emoshur called Guojutao over. He said to Guojutao, "I have to go out for a period of time. Next, you will organize the people in the base to cultivate on the desolate refining platform. Everyone will cultivate for 10 days and everyone will be able to become a Grand Desolate Master." When Guojutao heard Emoshur's last sentence, his entire body trembled with excitement. Previously, everyone had guessed that everyone would be able to become a Grand Desolate Master if they cultivated on the platform. However, when it came from Emoshur's mouth, it was a different matter. Think about it, if there were more than 50,000 people in the base, and every one of them was a Grand Desolate Master, what kind of scene would that be? Of course, if each person cultivated for 10 days, 50,000 people would need more than 500,000 days. That was more than 1,400 years. By that time, everyone here would be dead. However, this at least gave them hope. Furthermore, they had to plan properly and set up a reward system. Only those who performed well would be able to cultivate on the desolate refining platform. Then, these people would definitely be motivated. This would be beneficial to the base's long-term development. Of course, there were some drawbacks in this, but as long as they planned properly, these drawbacks could be avoided. Furthermore, with Mr. Mo's ability, he might come up with something even more powerful in a few days. It could cultivate faster than the desolate refining platform. Then, everyone would be able to become a Grand Desolate Master. Thinking of this, Guojutao nodded and said respectfully, "Mr. Mo, don't worry and go. I will arrange everything." When Emoshur heard this, he scratched his head and said, "Your words sound weird." Guojutao also realized that something was wrong and hurriedly said, "What I mean is, Mr. Mo, don't worry and go. I will take care of everything here for you." Emoshur shook his head and said, "It still doesn't feel right." Guojutao coughed dryly and said, "In short, Mr. Mo, don't worry." Emoshur stroked his chin and nodded. "Yes, it will be fine this time." After Guojutao left, Emoshur first put Happy into the micro-world. Now, in the micro-world, Emoshur was God. He changed this world according to his own wishes. In the sky, there were colorful phoenixes flying. The sun was the three-legged golden crow. A waterfall fell from the sky like the Milky Way. In the sky close to the ground, there were huge white cranes flying slowly. In the lake, there were colorful koi fish swimming. On the grass, there were flowers of different colors. If Happy got tired of these, he could change the world with just a thought. Most importantly, Emoshur thought of something. Since he was in this world, he was a godlike existence. The rules of this world were set by him. Did that mean that he could make Happy speak? When he thought of this, his heart could not help but beat wildly. If that was the case, even if Happy could only speak in this world, he would still be very happy. When he thought of this, Emoshur could not help but feel nervous. His nervousness stemmed from fear. He was afraid that in this world as a god, he would not be able to make Happy, who was a heaven speaker, speak. Therefore, he was a little hesitant. After a while, a thought appeared in his mind. In this world, heaven's speaker could speak. Chapter 460. Swans and phoenixes flew in the sky. Mandarin ducks swam in the lake. Emoshur was so nervous that his palms were sweating. He swallowed his saliva and his heart was beating wildly. He had seen many storms and waves. He could remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. But at this moment he was extremely nervous. What if he failed? This was similar to a daring person confessing to someone. What if she didn't accept him? How would they get along in the future? After a while, Emoshur gathered his courage and said, "Happy, try to speak." Happy was completely immersed in shock at this magical world. After hearing Mo Shi's words, she gestured with her hands. Brother Mo, this world is too magical. It's too beautiful. Mo Shi knew that Happy had misunderstood his meaning. This feeling was similar to being misunderstood as being a hooligan when he confessed. He hurriedly shook his head. No, what I mean is that you might be able to speak in this world. Happy was stunned. After a while, she nodded. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She couldn't speak since she was born. Even if she could suddenly speak, she couldn't speak in an instant. Her lips opened and closed and opened again. After a full half a minute, she seemed to have gathered all the strength in her body and stuttered 3 words. Brother. Mo. Brother. At this moment, Mo Shi only felt a huge happiness suddenly and fiercely crashed into his heart. Then, it exploded in his heart and completely drowned him. He had thought countless times that Happy would be able to speak. He had also heard Happy call out Brother Mo countless times in his dreams. When Happy really said it, Mo Shi didn't dare to believe it. He couldn't help but swallow again and say it again. Mo Shi wasn't the only one who didn't dare to believe it. Happy also didn't dare to believe it. Ever since she was born, she had never opened her mouth to speak. She didn't expect that after more than 20 years, she could finally speak. Her lips opened and closed again. After a while, she said 3 words. Brother, Mo. This time, although she still stuttered, it was much smoother than the previous time. Happy's eyes were already filled with tears of happiness, and he was so excited that he could not stop crying. Mo, big brother Mo, big brother Mo. Mo Shi nodded. Happy, you can speak now. She nodded happily. She was happy to have Mo Shi. With great difficulty, he said, Happy, very happy. Mo Shi couldn't help but have tears in his eyes. After a long time, the 2 of them finally let go of each other. Mo Shi immediately dismissed the idea of going to the 20th hunting island. He wanted to teach Happy how to speak in this world. He had never spoken before. Now that he had the ability to speak, he had to practice it slowly. Hence, for the next 5 days, Mo Shi and Happy stayed in Micro-World. The 2 of them spoke one after another. Usually, Mo Shi would say something and Happy would follow suit, until the right words are said. 5 days later, Happy no longer had any problems in saying some simple sentences. Mo Shi said to Happy, My world is called Micro-World. It's equivalent to a world independent of the universe. In this world, your brother Mo is a god. In this world, I can make you speak. But in the outside world, you still can't speak. Happy shook his head. Brother Mo, I'm already very satisfied to be able to speak here. You don't have to worry about me anymore. Mo Shi nodded gently and pulled Happy over. He said, What I mean is, we can stay here often in the future. If you have anything to say to me, you can say it here. Happy nodded and said, Yes, Brother Mo, I understand. After a while, Happy suddenly thought of something. Brother Mo, you can make me speak here. Can you make Sister Emma's son regain his normal intelligence? Mo Shi nodded. I can, but it's only limited to this world. Happy nodded and said, That's great. Even if it's only in this world, Sister Emma will be very happy. Hence, Happy returned to the real world and found Emma. He gestured with sign language. Sister Emma, you should know that Brother Mo has a miniature world. Emma nodded. I know, it's very beautiful. I really want to live there forever. Happy smiled and gestured. In that world, Brother Mo can make me speak. Emma was stunned. Then she said happily, Really? That's great. Let's go now. Let me see how you speak. Happy nodded and gestured again. And in that world, Brother Mo can make your son regain the intelligence of a normal human. Hearing this, Emma was stunned again. Then her heart burned. Really? Let's go now. She followed Emma and her son to Mo Shi's room. Mo Shi naturally knew about it. With a thought, the 4 of them entered the miniature world. When they appeared on the grass beside the lake, Emma looked at the dragons and phoenixes flying in the sky. Then, She looked at the various koi fish swimming in the water. Then, she looked at the huge waterfall that seemed to be hanging upside down from the heavenly palace. She couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Compared to the last time he was here, this place had undergone earth-shattering changes. But soon, her attention shifted from the changes in the environment to her son. She sized up her son carefully, then asked Emoshur, "Boss, Just as she said this, her son suddenly said, "Mom." When Emma heard this word, her whole body trembled. She turned to look at her son, tears welling up in her eyes. How many years had it been since she heard her son call her mom? She didn't even have any hope of hearing her son call her mom again in her lifetime. She didn't expect that her son would be able to call her mom again. When her son saw Emma's tears, he wiped them away with his hand. "Mom, I'm fine. You don't have to worry." Emma's tears welled up again. She hugged her son. This was the scene that he had been yearning for day and night. When Happy saw this, a happy smile appeared on his face. After a long time, Emma let go of her son, turned around, and said to Emoshur, "Boss, thank you?" Emoshur nodded slightly and said, "I always feel a bit awkward when I hear the word boss coming out of your mouth. Just call me Brother Emo." Emma nodded and said, "Brother Emo, thank you." Then, she bowed deeply to Emoshur with her son. She was grateful to Emoshur from the bottom of her heart. Happy, who was beside her, said, "Your son can only regain the intelligence of a normal person in this world, but in the outside world." Chapter 461. Happy said softly, "Sister Emma, your son can only be like this in this world, back in the real world." She did not have the heart to finish her sentence. She felt that it was very cruel to say such words to a mother. However, Emma shook her head. "It's okay. I'm already very satisfied to be like this here." Speaking of this, she looked at Happy in surprise. "This is the first time I've heard you speak. I didn't expect your voice to be so nice." Happy smiled shyly and said, "Sister Emma, you're making me a little embarrassed." Emoshur said, "If you like living here, you can stay here for a long time." Emma quickly nodded. "Thank you, OL." Brother Emo, Emma's son, was also very sensible. "Thank you." Emoshur shook his head. "No need to add elder." Since Happy and Emma liked to stay here, Emoshur decided to bring the three of them with him when he went out this time. At the very least, he would be able to eat a hot meal every time he brought them along. Moreover, there would be people to talk to when he was bored. After settling them down, Emoshur set off for the 20th hunting island. Now, he needed 1 million kill points to level up. Currently, he only had a little over 236,000 kill points. His goal for this trip to the 20th hunting ground was to obtain as many kill points as possible. Before he set off, he had done some research. In the 20th hunting ground, there were two types of creatures that were the most terrifying. One was the ghouls that mutated from humans after they were infected with the virus. The other was the mutated snakes. In the 20th hunting ground, normal humans only occupied 1/5 of the space. Ghouls and mutated snakes occupied the other 4/5 of the space. Ghouls lived on the rotting corpses of humans. Of course, they did not only eat rotting flesh and did not kill living humans. They would kill living humans and wait for them to rot before eating them. Moreover, these ghouls were very smart. They would not take the initiative to attack humans. Instead, they would often take advantage of the situation when humans were cornered by the mutated snakes. The strength of these snakes and ghouls was equivalent to that of a level 10 desolate hunter. Could be said that they were not a threat to Emoshur at all. Moreover, the number of ghouls and snakes was very large. Emoshur could easily kill a large number of them. Therefore, to ordinary desolate hunters, the 20th hunting ground, which was known as a forbidden zone, was the best place for Emoshur to obtain kill points. The 20th hunting island was relatively far away. It took Emoshur 2 days to reach the 20th hunting island. When they arrived at the business hall of hunting island number 20, Emoshur probed with his dragon mind. he discovered that the people who came to the 20th hunting island were basically all rank 10 desolate hunters. Clearly, they were here to break through to the Grand Desolate Master level. However, as the 20th hunting ground was extremely dangerous, most of them came in groups. In groups of 3 to 5, each group was made up of level 10 Grand Desolate Masters from the same sect. The sects that could come here were basically the top sects in the entire Flaming Dawn continent. In addition to the business hall, there were also living areas, leisure areas, entertainment areas, and other areas on the 20th hunting island. In these areas, there were quite a few rank 10 hunters. Wuxia probed with his dragon mind and found that many of the desolate hunters were talking about the annihilation of the dragon clan. I wonder which super expert annihilated the dragon clan. It has been so many days, and there is no clue at all. Didn't anyone check it out? Are you kidding? To be able to annihilate the dragon clan, his strength is definitely at the top of the Flaming Dawn continent. Who would dare to investigate? Are they looking for death? That's true. If I had such strength, who would dare to get in my way? I would just annihilate them. The few people who were talking all had yearning expressions. Of course, there were also people who reminded him. The continent is not very peaceful recently. Everyone better behave on the continent. Yeah. If that super expert doesn't like it, it will be over. We have been very careful recently. As the second most powerful sect on the continent, the sect master has given a strict order that no disciple is allowed to provoke any person from any sect. Violators will be killed on the spot. Damn. Isn't your sect too strict? We have no choice. The number 1 faction, the Dragon Clan, has been annihilated. As the number 2 faction, we are also very scared. As they spoke, a trace of fear appeared on their faces. Hearing these words, Wuxia could not help but touch his chin. Am I that scary? Next, it was Wuxia's turn to line up to buy a ticket. When Wuxia went to the other hunting islands for the first time, he was afraid of exposing his identity, so he asked the little monk to get a ticket for him online. Now, Wuxia's strength could be said to be among the top of the Flaming Dawn continent. Naturally, he did not need to be afraid of exposing his identity. If he really exposed his identity, it would be these people who should be afraid. There were actually quite a lot of people going to the 20th hunting ground. After all, many people were stuck at rank 10. If they could break through to the Grand Desolate Master level, not only would their strength reach the level of a first-rate expert, but their lifespan would also be extended to 1,000 years. Naturally, all the desolate hunters who had hopes of breaking through to the Grand Desolate Master level would come to try. Wuxia did not go to the self-service ticket vending machine to buy a ticket. This was because the automatic ticket vending machine only had 1 ticket per person. There were not many people lining up at the ticket window, so Wuxia quickly arrived at the window. The beautiful ticket sales girl at the window had a professional smile on her face as she asked, "Hello, may I know how many people are there?" Wuxia replied, "1 person." The ticket sales girl nodded with a smile and said, "1 ticket." Wuxia smiled and shook his head. "No, I want to book a ticket for a year." The ticket sales girl was speechless. She was stunned. She had been selling tickets here for 3 years. She often saw experts who went to the 20th hunting ground for a month and came back without resting. They would buy another ticket and enter the 20th hunting ground again. However, she had never heard of someone who could book a ticket for a year. When the surrounding people saw this, although they did not say anything, they were laughing in their hearts. Could this be a country bumpkin from somewhere? Did he know how expensive the tickets were? 1 ticket cost 2 million. If he bought a ticket for a year, wouldn't it cost 24 million? Was he crazy? Moreover, money was secondary. The most important thing was that the 20th hunting ground was extremely dangerous for desolate hunters. There was a saying in the story, "Towering giant python." This showed how terrifying the mutated snakes were. Not to mention the ghouls, whose intelligence was about the same as humans. One had to be on tenterhooks after going there for a month. One had to be in a tense state at all times. Therefore, many people would have to rest for a long time after going there for a month. Now, this kid actually wanted to book a ticket for a year. Was he crazy? Chapter 462. The pretty ticket seller was stunned when she heard Mosher say it was for a year. But with her professionalism, she quickly regained her professional smile. She said, "Sir, I have to remind you that the 20th hunting ground is very dangerous. According to the rules of our hunting island, each person can only buy one ticket. After a month, you have to come back and rest for a few days." Mosher shook his head. "No need. I'm in a hurry." The pretty ticket seller continued. "Each ticket costs 2 million, so you'll need 24 million a year. I suggest you—" "No need. Here's a check for 30 million from Yensher Bank. You can withdraw cash from any bank." As Mosher spoke, he took out a check. He already knew that these people would make excuses, so it was more practical to pay directly. The surrounding people who had been secretly laughing just now all widened their eyes at this moment. Damn! 30 million just like that. Whose rich kid is this? His family has a mine, right? In fact, they were right. Mosher did have a mine on Hunting Island number 1. But his money did not come from the crystal source veins. It was what he got after he inherited Hunting Island number 1. And this was only a small part of all his assets. After he destroyed the Skygold Trisect and the Dragon Clan, he also got a large amount of electronic currency. Although these electronic currencies needed to be verified before they could be used, it was not difficult for the little monk to crack them. So now Mosher was definitely one of the richest people on the continent. Even Mosher himself did not know how much wealth he had now. Seeing this, the female ticket seller's beautiful eyes showed a hint of surprise. But she was still very professional. She regained her smile. She said politely, "Sir, I can't make the decision on this matter. Please wait in the VIP room for a while. I'll get the manager." Mosher nodded. Okay. Then he turned around and walked toward the VIP room. Seeing this, the people around all shook their heads helplessly. You can really do whatever you want with money. What rules? What rules? They're nothing in front of money. What can we do? If you have money, you can too. When Mosher arrived at the VIP lounge, someone had already brewed a cup of high-quality black tea. Before Mosher could savor it, the manager had already walked in. This was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was plump and looked simple and honest. As soon as he came in, his face was full of smiles. "Honorable sir, what is your name?" Mosher said. Mr. Mo, we are honored to have you on our Hunting Island 20. Please have a seat. This is the best long tea. Please have a taste." Mosher nodded. This manager looked simple and honest. Actually, it was very slippery. However, Mosher did not intend to have too much to do with him. He directly slapped out a check. 30 million for a year. The manager looked at the check in front of him with a smile. "Mr. Mo, you're so cool." The 20th Hunting Island has always been very straightforward with people who like to be straightforward. "Sure." Mosher nodded. "That's good. Let's go now." The manager was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Mosher to be so direct and efficient at handling matters at such a young age, without the slightest hesitation. He quickly nodded. "Of course. I'll prepare the VIP channel for you. Everyone else will be temporarily suspended. Only you will be teleported." This was a little too high profile. However, there were still many people who needed to be teleported. If Mosher followed the normal procedure, it would probably take more than an hour. Therefore, Mosher nodded and said, "Okay." The manager said, "Mr. Mo, please come with me." Then he led Mosher to the teleportation hall. When the people around saw that the manager of the 20th Hunting Island was personally escorting this guest, they all looked at each other. Sure enough, with money, even if you asked a ghost to grind it, the ghost would definitely agree. The plump manager turned back and asked while walking, "Mr. Mo, the 20th Hunting Island is very dangerous. Do you need us to send 2 grand desolate masters to accompany you?" Mosher shook his head. "No need." "Well, okay." While talking, the two arrived at the teleportation hall. The manager had already informed the people in front of the teleportation hall to temporarily suspend the teleportation. Of course, these people were basically disciples of the major sects on the continent. They could not be offended. Therefore, there was compensation for them. Each of them would be given a refund of 100,000 for the entrance fee. Most of these disciples were happy to have their money refunded. Although they were disciples of the major sects, their money did not grow on trees. How could they not be happy that they could save 100,000 yuan by waiting a little longer? Of course, there were also disciples of the major sects who did not lack money. Their faces were full of embarrassment. However, before they left, the elders in their sects had warned them that it was a critical time and they should not cause any trouble. Therefore, they could only endure it for the time being. After Mo Shi arrived at the teleportation hall, the teleportation was soon activated. He turned into a blue and white ball of light and disappeared from the teleportation hall under the envious and jealous gazes of the others. The manager secretly used his multifunctional watch to check the authenticity of the 30 million yuan check. In the end, he nodded in satisfaction. Then, he smiled at the crowd and said, "Everyone, I'm really sorry. The guest just now had some urgent matters to attend to. I'm sorry for wasting everyone's time. When you come back from the 20th hunting ground in a month, your expenses will be waived for the next 3 days." Hearing that, everyone clapped and cheered. Although they did not care about the money, it was naturally good to spend less. The manager was overjoyed and went to report to the island master. He had made a lot of money today. The island master should be very happy. When the island master was happy, many things would be easy to handle. More than 10 minutes after Mo Shi left, the news of a person spending 30 million yuan for a year spread throughout the entire 20th hunting island. From the managers of the hunting island to the people who came here for training, everyone was amazed. 30 million? Damn, I can't earn that much even if I earn 10 lifetimes. A year's subscription? This is the first time I've heard of a year's subscription in the hunting ground. It seems that guy is not only rich but also far stronger than ordinary people. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to book a year's subscription in the 20th hunting ground. At the same time, in the island master's office on the 20th hunting island, the island master was studying how to expand the 20th hunting island. The fat manager suddenly walked in excitedly and said, "Good news, island master." The island master retracted his gaze from the computer screen and looked up at the fat manager. "What's the good news?" The fat manager replied, "This morning, our turnover exceeded 50 million. 50 million? It's twice as high as usual." The island master was slightly puzzled. In the past, it would be 30 million at most in half a day. How could it suddenly increase by so much? You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.